Good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Mountaineer Locker Room, Then and Out. Greg Chris, joined by my good friend Frank Fear. And Frank, here we are at the end of April, getting ready to head into May. So spring things are happening quickly, and that's what we're going to address tonight with all the transfer portal people and ins and outs. And we've got the expert on with us tonight, Mark Parsons, who is keeps track of all this for us, so we don't have to. So it's nice to have somebody that is willing to sit down and take note of all these things.
Greg, it is, as they say, you have to have the scorecard to follow the players. But the scorecard keeps on changing. That's the issue.
Yeah.
So it's the new world of college football. And Mark and I were talking today that Rodriguez has signed, Coach Rodriguez has signed, I think it was 10 players in the last 3 days. And
Yeah.
so, it's just one of the things we have to get used to. So we really appreciate Mark being here, Mark Parsons, who's extremely knowledgeable, follows it very closely to help us all learn. And that's not just the viewers. You and I are trying to learn this too and get a better sense of whom you might see on the field when Mountaineers open at the end of August, actually.
Yep. And before we get to that, the baseball team's still clicking along pretty good, and have cracked in that top 10. Is pretty exciting stuff with the baseball squad.
It's what a joy it is to watch this team. Coach Maisie put together a great team, and Steve Sabins now is in charge. And I tell you, my favorite game last weekend. I'm not sure if it was the Friday game when West Virginia got one hit and won the game 4-1. Which how do you do that? Talk about a rabbit out of the hat. But it really was the Saturday game when Mountaineers got off to a 5-0 first inning lead. And then the next thing I saw, West Virginia's down 6-5, and it went back and forth. And it really came down to the 8th and 9th inning. And there's Lumsden came up, a pinch hitter. He was a prime player last year, but he's really been coming off the bench. Came up to the plate with 2 on, and West Virginia up, I think, a run at that point. Maybe 2, I can't remember. I think it was 1 run. And he's batting 0.99. And I'll tell you, it got to be a full count. He hit that ball right over the right field fence. And couldn't be happier for a guy that's really, really stuck with it. And he rounded the bases, and West Virginia then won Sunday. And they're playing right now. We'll monitor that. They're down in Charleston playing Marshall. And then it's Texas Tech this weekend at home.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't know. I haven't researched the history of it or anything, but I'm not sure we've ever been ranked so high. I don't know if our baseball team has ever been ranked up as high as they are right now, and I'm not sure where they're at right now. Again, that changes, regularly too, and I don't follow it close enough like I should. I just watch them and watch them win and move on. But one of the things about them, they're so much fun to watch. Is I think is their aggressiveness, like on the base paths. They're still at home and they're getting an extra base and doing those type of things that you have to do to win. And they're so aggressive in doing that. It just keeps these teams off balance, I think. And one of the things I coached a little bit of baseball, not very well, but back in the day. One of the things I learned in high school baseball, and it holds true for college, the key, of course, everybody has to have pitching. That's on all level. But the key to me always was you gotta put the ball in play. You gotta make the defense react to you, and that's one of the things that they do. And what got me thinking about that? I was talking to my brother-in-law this weekend. He was a baseball coach at Trail, played baseball in college, and talking about a game he won once. He scored 13 runs, won a game 13-7, and he bunted. I think he said he bunted like 21 times during the game, and they won. And so the key is getting the ball out there, making them make plays, and a lot of them struggle with that. even your good teams will, have problems with filling the ball or making decisions. And when you force them to do that, and you force them to do it a lot, and you force them to do it quickly, most time the odds are in your favor, and that's what she does. Just seems like they're always pushing that envelope, making that extra base, and stealing a base, and that sort of thing. So they're just a lot of fun to watch, and they hit the ball typically. Yeah, the other night they didn't hit well. Like you said, they won, but only had one hit. But I think he ended up with a couple. But typically they hit, and another thing about them is they hit. Um, in crucial situations when they got to have a hit, they get a hit. And it's just fun to watch them. You don't ever feel like they're going to get beat.
Down in Charleston in the fourth inning, and also checked here in terms of nationally, the Mountaineers by percentage have the best record in college baseball, D1, at 37-5. And if they win tonight, they will tie LSU, they will tie Texas with the most wins at 38 in the country. So this is not just a great Big 12 team, but they're competing nationally at the very highest levels. And it's really super to watch. And the big goal now is to get a regional in Morgantown, and then advance to the Super 8, and then to Super Regionals rather, and then to go on and to Omaha for play for the national championship. We'll just see how it goes.
Yeah, that's like I said, fun team to watch, and if people haven't gotten the opportunity to watch them, they need to watch them. They need to check them out because they are, and they're legitimately good. It's I know early in the season there was a lot of talk about they're winning games, but they're not playing that good a competition, which was true, but they have played good competition from that point on, and they've won. you know, and the cool thing about watching the game tonight down in Charleston is that thing is packed. That stadium is packed, and a lot of people interested in watching the Mountaineers. And of course, Marshall. I don't know if it's considered a rivalry in baseball or not, but in-state rivalry, of course. And what I'm looking at right now is 3-2. WVU's up. Um, Marshall just scored, so
Hmm.
uh, 3-2 in the can't really see the inning, but looks like the fourth maybe. And but anyway, fun team to watch. People need to check them out, and they're getting really good pitching too as well. We didn't mention that. The pitching staff is really coming around. I think that's been one
Mm-hmm.
of the big surprises for them. And I don't know, a lot about these guys. I'm sure the coaches knew coming in. The pitching staff was going to be good, but I think they surprised some people as well.
Mm-hmm. It's a good team, and it's great, and a lot of stuff moving on in football, and both college and pro. And after Mark, we're going to have colleague Derek Hollingsworth come on and talk about an inside story, a scoop he got with respect to the pre-draft. That the most intriguing story in the draft was the fall of Shadir Sanders, and so he was able to interview a coach who, well, he'll explain it. So we'll have Derek on
Yeah.
in second half of the show. But first, we'll bring on our good friend Mark Parsons.
Yep, absolutely. And Mark, welcome to the show. And as I'm speaking, Marshall just hit a two-run homer, and they've taken the lead now 4-3 over West
Wow.
Virginia. And so that's going to be a good one. You can tell already. Interesting. You mentioned Derek Collinsworth. Um, the day you sent me the article, and I read that article. I had was watching. I'm a talk show junkie. I watch all these shows on TV and listen on the radio. Um, to a talk show host who had basically the same take on that, and it was kind of odd to hear that. And but again, I'm not going to say much about it. I want him to give his viewpoint on that. I think it's be interesting for people to hear. Mark, welcome to the show, buddy. Mark, for those of you that don't know, helps us out a great deal with guests and does other things behind the scenes we don't always get to see. But we're tickled that he's been able to make an appearance with us tonight. welcome to the show, Mark. And I know you got lots of good info for us.
Well, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, absolutely. And when we start talking about transfers in, transfers out, portals, NILs, and all those, you're our go-to guy. We always check in with Mark to see what's actually going on because we get all kind of information out there on as my mom used to say, the interwebs, and there's all kinds of info out there, but you don't always know what's accurate and what's not. And I know you have lots of connections and know lots of inside folks and have a good handle on what is going on. So I'm gonna quit talking, let you start talking, and just you can take us through. I think Frank has some graphics, and Frank, if you want to explain how the graphics are set up, that way Mark will can arrange his discussion in that order.
Well, as Mark knows, I called him in a panic this afternoon and asked him whether we should update the graphics that we had yesterday, because I said, Rodriguez and staff have signed 10 in the last 3 days, and he said, well, it's going to keep on changing, right, Mark? It's going to keep on changing, so it doesn't
Keep
make
your
any
head on a
difference.
swivel.
So, yeah. So once Mark starts talking, we'll figure out which graphic we should put up. But Mark, why don't you give the introduction and then launch into it, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. What I prepared today was to talk about a two-deep roster of kind of where it stands in the current state. Keep in mind, it's changing every day, and what I'm going to explain this at the end of my talk. We signed 4 players today, which aren't even on the chart yet, and this thing's going to change every day, and I think it's probably going to change every day till that week before the game, and then things will probably start to take shape. We may not know everything until game time. I think they may keep everything quiet, keep everybody guessing. But just want to let you know, too, there's a lot of new terminology. So the players, as well as the fans, have got to learn the positions and just some different things that are not the same as what Neil Brown had in place. And we've got a lot of new faces from all over the country, actually all over the world. We've got a couple players that are from out of the country. And what I'm going to do in my presentation here is I'm going to give it too deep, and I'm going to tell if they were a transfer, I'm going to tell where they were from and their hometown and what their class is. So we can kind of get a feel of what we got, coming up for the next year, and if we have anybody that's going to be coming back to help us in the future. But again, that could change too. Just players are coming and going so fast. I heard an interview of a coach. I think it was UConn's coach for basketball, was talking about he's in the middle of his season and 50% of his players were already looking to at the portal in the middle of the year to transfer, and they're talking about how much money they can make and weighing their options. So it's just a different time out there right now. But what I'd like to do, if we can we put up a graphic for the offense first? Okay. As far as the offense goes, I'm going to start with quarterback. Of course, Nico Markiel's coming back. He's a junior out of Chandler, Arizona. Everybody's pretty familiar with him. My personal opinion, I'd love to see him get it. I think he's paid his dues. I'd like to see him win that starting position. But apparently it's a tight race between him and the backup is right now is Jalen Henderson, who's a junior from West Hills, California. He transferred in from Texas A&M, and they're really not saying who has the lead in that situation. Markiel has experience, so does Henderson. They both have started games. That's going to be an interesting race. I think it's going to go right up until game time. They're not going to release anything on that, keep everybody guessing. As far as running back, there's been a change this week as far as running back goes. Of course, we have Jaheim White coming back. He's a junior out of York, Pennsylvania. He's been the starter for a couple of years. His backup was probably going to be one of the junior college transfers that we saw come in here back in January, but they signed a guy this week who has been moved to number 2 in the depth chart, and that's Jalen Knighton. He's a transfer from SMU. He's originally from Deerfield Beach, Florida, and he's a senior, so we're only going to have him 1 year. But he has quite a bit of experience, racked up some yardage out there, and I think he could be. I think he'll be the backup and be a solid one at that. So that was a good get by the staff. Now, wide receivers, we got 3 different positions at wide receiver. The X position, we got Cam Vaughn, who's a transfer from Jacksonville State. He's from Temple, Georgia. He's a sophomore. He was the number 1 receiver for Rodriguez at Jacksonville State. Had a good spring practice, and right now seems to have the lock on the number 1 slot there at that X receiver slot. And his backup was just signed a week or so ago, Christian Hamilton from the University of North Carolina. He transferred in. He's a sophomore from Harrisburg, North Carolina. So we'll have both of those guys, barring, no changes with the NIL and the portal, for a couple more years. Excuse me. And then at the Z slot, we have a familiar receiver there, Jaden Bray, who played some last year. He was originally a transfer from Oklahoma State. He did start some games last year, had some injuries. He's a senior. He's out of Norman, Oklahoma. And his backup is Jeff Weimer, transfer from Idaho State. And he also was at another school, I believe. He was at he might have been at UNLV, but he's a 1,000-yard receiver at both those schools. And he's a senior. This is his last year, but he comes from Salinas, California. So you can see what I mean. There's players from all over the United States. At slot, we have and one thing I wanted to point out there too, the third slot and at the Z is Preston Fox. He's not even on the 2 deep chart, and he was a starter the last couple of years. So he's third team in that spot. So there's quite a bit of depth, at least at that Z position. I think probably get some production out of all 3 of those guys. Now the slot receiver, we have Rodney Gallagher from Uniontown, Pennsylvania. He's a junior. He's returning. Everybody's pretty familiar with him. And his backup currently is Orrin Singleton, a transfer from Eastern Michigan. He's from Clewiston, Florida. And he's a senior also. Keep in mind, we've just signed a couple of receivers. So they're not on the depth chart right now. I don't know how that's going to work out. But, this could change as well. But as it stands right now, those are the 2 at the slot. Now, the tight end position has been totally shaken up here. We lost a couple players. Samarco ended up going to Alabama, and he was slotted to be the starter. And right after he left, they signed Grayson Barnes out of Northern Illinois. He's a senior originally from Rockland, California. He can both catch and pass, and I think that's important with this 105 limit. You don't want to have to waste 2 scholarships on one tight end, because you're going to need a blocker, you're going to need a pass catcher. And I think you're getting both in him, and I think that helps with the numbers side of things. And his backup is currently Jacob Barrick. He's a transfer from Jacksonville State, originally from Martinsburg, West Virginia. He's a junior. But they're also looking at other tight ends, and I'll go over that and they're still out there looking. Any questions on those before I move on to the line? Nope. Okay. Now at offensive tackle, on the left side, we've got currently Nick Cray. He's from Harbor Creek, Pennsylvania. He is a holdover from the Brown regime. He's a sophomore. His backup is Xavier Bosley from Jacksonville State. He's originally from South Charleston, West Virginia, and he's a junior. I think he's going to be a good player in the future. That's somebody that I think we're going to see him move up. Then on the other side at tackle, we have I believe it's Tykeist Crawford. He's a transfer from Arkansas, originally from Carthage, Texas, and he's a senior. And his backup is Michael Clay he transferred in from North Alabama about a week ago. He's already been put in the number 2 slot. He's originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and he also is a senior with 1 year left. So they're starting to get more players in on the offensive line. But I mean, we just signed another one today. There's 20 players out there to choose from, and they're still looking. So I mean, they're not finished. So all this could change as we're talking, over the next few months. Now at guard, we've got Walter Youngbear. He's a transfer from Tulsa, originally from Norman, Oklahoma. He's a senior. And his backup also was signed about a week ago. It's Malik Agbo. He's a transfer from Texas, from Federal Way, Washington. He's a junior, so he's got 2 years left. He was a 4-star coming out of high school. I think he was a pretty good get, and I'll look for him to do some things there. Again, he hadn't even had a chance to get out on the field yet, and he's already listed as a backup, so we'll see what happens there. Now, at the other guard slot, we've got, I'm not sure on the name, but it's Timo McAnole. He's from LSU, originally from Niceville, Florida. He's a senior. And he has played both defense and offense, so kind of a unique situation there. But he's currently the starter at the other guard. Now his backup is Cooper Young. He's a very young player. He's from Downingtown, Pennsylvania. He's a holdover from Neil Brown's tenure. I look for them to slide somebody else in there, maybe with more experience as backup on that. And again, I'll go over some of that here at the end. You'll see what I'm talking about. And then at center, Landon Livingston from Leo, Indiana. He's a junior. He's a holdover from Brown. He does have some playing experience. He did play last year in quite a few games, including the bowl game. And I think he's going to be a fairly solid player. And now they did not have a backup for him. But the portal has came through again, and they brought in Robbie Martin, who's a transfer from NC State, originally from Huntington, West Virginia, and he has 4 years left. He's a true freshman. So there's something to build on there, and I think he's going to be a good ball player. He was highly recruited out of high school. He was a 4-star. I think Huntington has sure put out the players over the last few years, and fortunately we've been able to get probably 95% of those players at WVU. So that just kind of continues that pipeline from down in Huntington. I guess that's kind of a dig on Marshall a little bit. But any questions about the offense at all?
I'll tell you what, we talked about not knowing who these players are, playing for the name on the front of the jersey. Even if we know who they are, Frank, I'm not so sure we can pronounce their names. From what I read on that list, other than the one that I love, which is Young Bear.
Yeah.
Young Bear.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Mark, we know now why Coach Rodriguez wanted to move the spring game up a month to the start of April versus the end of April, because he said all along he's going to go back into the portal, and he got the jump on schools that played their spring games or did whatever at the end of the month. And so they're extremely active, obviously. But what you just done, you're going to do with the defense too, is it really gives us a good overview of how it's shaping up, because the beginning of the season is 4 months from today,
right?
The 30th of August. And so that's excellent. So go on to the defense.
Well, I was going to say, when he became coach back in December, he said that he was going to have a good signing period at the first portal opening, and he did. But some of those players he signed in January are already gone. But he did say when he first was hired in his press conference, I'm going to sign. Majority of my players are going to come out of that spring signing period, and he's holding true to that. I mean, he said he was going to sign 29 players, and he's going to hit it, I think, the way he's going. So it's just like I said, keep your head on a swivel because it's changing every day now. But now on defense, can we get the defensive graphic up there?
Yep, he's got it.
On defense, on the line, it's holding fairly solid as far as the interior line from a year ago, and I'll get into that. But now on defensive end, they have totally went with the portal on this, and they've got a really good one in Jamori Robinson. He was the American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year. He went to Texas San Antonio when he transferred in here. He's from Alexandria, Virginia, so he's close to Morgantown, and he has 1 year left. And the NFL scouts are already looking at him, so there's a positive there. He's a good player. And then on the other side, or actually his backup is Adam Tomzik. Now, he has not been in Morgantown yet. He's a junior college transfer out of Cerritos Community College. He's originally from Los Alamitos, California. He's a sophomore. He's got a couple of years left. He started out at Utah State, and then he ended up going to JUCO. He's a big kid, and that's the big difference I'm seeing on the offensive line as well as the defensive line. The guys that they're bringing in are a lot bigger than what have been seeing over the past 6-7 years. On the other side, on the defensive end, they brought in a guy about a week ago named Eddie Kelly. He transferred from Missouri. He's from Winter Garden, Florida, and he's a senior. Has 1 year left. Went right to the top of the depth chart. He hadn't even been on the field yet, but he's a solid player. I think he's going to be a good one. And his backup is a true freshman, Wilnerson Talamock, I think is how you say it. I'm not positive on how to say it. He's from Miami, Florida, but it would not shock me if they don't get some help there, out of the portal as well, because he's so young. Then again, maybe in spring ball he did really well. Everything was such hush hush on the spring ball side of things. It's you don't know. I really don't know how a lot of players have developed. They just kept everything secret. So we'll see. But it wouldn't shock me if they don't try to get a little help there. Now, defensive tackle, this is where things kind of remain constant. Edward Vesterinen from Helsinki, Finland, he's a senior, and he was a starter. He never missed a game until he got hurt last year, and then he missed part of the season. Solid player, and he's back for his senior year. And his backup also played when he was out injured. So he's got a lot of experience, but it's Asani Redwood out of Suwanee, Georgia. He's a junior, has 2 years left. Another solid player there. I think we're good shape there. Nose tackle, kind of the same thing. Hammond Russell from Dublin, Ohio. He's a senior. Has started. And then Corey McIntyre, his backup, Port St. Lucie, Florida, sophomore. Highly touted. He had some injury issues too, but he's back, and I think they have big things expected from him. So we'll see how that goes. But we're fairly solid, I think, in that interior line. Now at the bandit position, which is just something that's different than Brown's defense. This is an added kind of a hybrid linebacker, defensive back type of player, and they. Number one out of spring practice is a sophomore, Curtis Jones from Ono, West Virginia. He went to Cabell Midland. And it was expected that Braden Siders from Wyoming would probably be in that slot. But right now, Jones has got the first team nod over Siders. Siders came from Wyoming, originally from Arvada, Colorado. He has 1 year left. I think that's going to be a solid position as well. A far cry of what we've had depth-wise on defense. I think we're going to see a lot of difference there this year. Now at the Mike linebacker, got a constant there as well. Reed Carrico is a senior from Ironton, Ohio. He originally transferred from Ohio State, started most of the year last year. What's unique, though, is the guy behind him just transferred in here. He's a Group of 5 All-American Ben Bogle, transferred in from Southern Illinois. He's originally from Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida. He's a senior. That's going to be a battle right there. Again, we're going to have plenty of players there at Mike linebacker. I think we're going to be in good shape there as well. We've had some depth issues at linebacker over the past couple of years, and we've had injuries, and we've had to rely on young players. And I think that things are going to start to turn around there slowly but surely. And an off the ball linebacker, which is a new terminology, they have a transfer in there from Chase Wilson from Colorado State. He's originally from Arvada, Colorado. He's a senior also. Pretty good player from what I hear. I think he's going to have that slot pretty much locked up. Now, his backup comes in highly touted. He was a 4-star, transferred in from the University of North Carolina, originally from Marietta, Georgia. He's a sophomore, so he's got a couple of years left. Ashton Woods, he's going to be a good player too. Again, I think we're getting some depth there. It's going to help us. And now the nickel back, when they go into a nickel package, you add an extra defensive back in there. There's a couple of transfers. One, Fred Perry from Jacksonville State. He's originally from Warner Robins, Georgia. He's a senior. Warner Robins, Georgia, and Auburn just salivate to go to Warner Robins to get players. I mean, it's a football factory down there. And this kid he comes out of a great background. They tell me, the radio guys tell me he's going to be a fan favorite with the interviews. He's very funny, and I hope he didn't get any personal fouls, but he likes to talk too. But he can back it up, so we'll see how things go. But he, pretty good player there, I think. That was a good get that he was able to come with Rodriguez. And, of course, keep in mind on these Jacksonville State guys transferring in here, they know that defensive coordinator from his time at Jacksonville, and that's going to help things along the way. Even on offense, it's just going to help practice, the flow of practice and all that. I think there's a lot of good from that. And if you think back, you look at Indiana, what they did last year, they brought about 15 players from James Madison, and I think that made a difference in their season. I think it made things flow a lot better. Now the backup at the nickel is another good one. Jordan Scruggs from South Alabama. He transferred in. He's originally from Kansas City, and he's a senior also, has 1 year left. I've heard he's a really good hard hitter, good player there as well. I think we're going to be solid there in that position. Now, we're going to the defensive backs. This has been a sore spot for everybody, I think, over the last several years, other than Beanie Bishop. It's been a hit or miss every year on this, but I do believe we're turning the corner there too. Michael Coates transferred in. He's a cornerback. He's from Biloxi, Mississippi. He transferred in from the University of Nevada in Reno. He's a senior. He's the number 2, forecasted to be the number 2 cornerback taken in the draft. And I've heard some of the guys on ESPN said whoever gets him in the portals, it's going to be a steal. And I think that's going to be a true shutdown corner, and we haven't had that in a long time. Maybe since Rasul Douglas was here, really, to be honest with you. And his backup was a transfer, Jason Chambers from Matthews, North Carolina, outside of Charlotte. He transferred in from App State. He's also a senior. I don't know much about him, but he's coming with a coach that's one of the assistants that Rodriguez brought in, and I think that's the tie in there. Now, on the other side of the field, at the cornerback, you have Derek Carter from Jacksonville State, another transfer that came with Rodriguez. He's from Gardendale, Alabama. He's a senior, started at Jacksonville State and just kind of slid right into the top spot there. And his backup is another supposedly pretty good player too, and Devontae Golden Nelson. He's from Memphis, Tennessee. He's a senior. He transferred in from Akron. I've heard good things about him too, but as it stands right now, Carter is the starter. So, as I said, things can change. We signed more defensive backs today. So, I mean, it's just hard to say for sure. Just have to wait and see on things. Now, at safety, they've changed the terminology there a little bit. They have a high safety and a box safety. Now, high safety, the starter is Kokora Tarnu. He is a transfer from Jacksonville State. He was on Neil Brown's under his tenure last year, but he played cornerback, and it did not turn out very well, and he was out of position, and he went in the portal. But when Rodriguez was hired, he came back in, and he went back to his true position, which is safety, and he's listed as the starter at high safety. He's a senior from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I think that maybe that's what he needed to be. Maybe he was just out of position, and that corner wasn't for him. His backup is another transfer, Jordan Walker. He transferred in from the Chattanooga. He's from Lafayette, Alabama. He's a senior. I've heard good things about him as well. As it stands right now, Tarnu is in there. Now, at the box safety position, I've heard we've got a real good one here. Justin Harrington. He's a transfer from the University of Washington, originally from Raleigh, North Carolina. He's a senior. He's bigger than anybody we've had since Robert Sands. Robert Sands, I don't know if you remember him back in the Bill Stewart days, played in the NFL a little bit. This guy's 6'3". We haven't had anybody that tall at safety since Sands back in the when Holgerson was and Bill Stewart were coaching. And then his backup is Israel Boyce, is a Brown holdover from Douglasville, Georgia. He's a sophomore. Again, that's a young player, and we signed a couple of defensive backs today. I think that could be another one of those that, one of these new guys may work their way in there just because of experience. Any questions on defense?
It's nice to see some recognizable names on there. That's one good thing, I think. Some of these names we're familiar with, but it sounds like, again, bringing in people to fill certain needs and things that we haven't seen in the past. And you mentioned, the size of the players, the linebackers, defensive backs, et cetera, et cetera. Those are all things that we really struggled with in the past few years.
Well, I think with on defense, I think our line is fairly intact. I think we're okay there. We've added in those good defensive ends. That's going to help pass rush a lot. We've been undersized and slow at linebacker. And I'll talk a little bit about that today. We signed a guy today that I think is probably going to change everything I just talked about. But and same thing at defensive back. I mean, there's a big difference between somebody 6'3" and somebody that's 5'8" out there chasing guys around and trying to battle a 6'4" receiver for a pass. Big difference. And I think that's what he's trying to do, is to get those types of defensive backs. Get somebody back there like Boogie Allen and some of those guys that are, 6'2", 6'3", big guys that, that are still fast and knock your head off kind of players. And that's what we're trying to get back to. I've heard people say that we're still small at linebacker and so forth, but the aggressiveness has changed this spring. It's just a totally different mindset as far as how they play. So we'll see how it goes. Time will tell on everything. One thing too with it that kind of bothers me when your team is made in spring ball, in your winter conditioning, and then in spring ball, you kind of see what you have. Those are big steps. Those 15 practices play a big role in how you're going to play in the fall, how you're going to be. We're bringing in so many guys now that haven't seen the field, didn't go through spring ball. I don't know how that's going to play out. Now, Rodriguez last year, he won his conference, but his players that he brought in really didn't start clicking until about the third game. But after that, the season went really good. I mean, to be honest with you, with our schedule, first two games, we may be able to get by with some mistakes. But once we get to Pitt and from then forward, we're going to have to get after it in order to be able to compete in those games. So I'm hoping that things will gel, but it's just I am concerned that a lot of these guys weren't able to go through spring ball and they're going to have to learn everything over the summer. And I don't know, it's kind of tough. We'll see how things go. I'm trying to be positive. So now moving on to the specialists, moving on to the specialists, we've got punter back, Oliver Straw. He's a senior from Australia. He's been a solid punter. I think we're fine there. Field goal kicker, we just signed a guy to kick field goals. Cade Hensley. He's from Johnson City, Tennessee. He's at 1 year left. He's transferring in from Coastal Carolina, and his statistics are pretty solid. I think he maybe missed one extra point and very few field goals in his career at Coastal Carolina. Now on kickoffs, and he has had kickoff duties, but now as far as kickoff goes, they've got Ethan Head, who's a transfer from Tulane. He's a sophomore for Chicago, Illinois, and I think that's his forte, is putting the ball in the end zone so you can't bring it out. And I think we've lacked that too, and I think that's going to help. Our kickoff coverage has hurt us some over the last few years, and I think this is what he's trying to turn around. Now, the punt returner, kickoff returner, and long snapper are all to be determined. Preston Fox he was the punt returner last year, and he's back, but he's not listed as a punt returner. And I know Rodriguez has brought in some defensive backs and some receivers that he's looking at to possibly help with some of that stuff. So I don't know how that's going to play out for Fox. He had some good games. He had some bad games. It was just inconsistent there. So I don't know. We'll have to kind of wait and see what happens there. They do have a couple long snappers that are listed on the roster. I don't know how that's playing out right now. They got tough shoes to fill. Brinkman, he just signed with the Texans that was there for the last couple of years. So they got pretty good shoes to fill and as far as being a long snapper. So we'll see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as far as what I was talking about the signings today, I mean, today alone we signed a defensive back in Caleb Gray. He's a JUCO player from Dodge City, Kansas, originally from Galveston, Texas. He's a true freshman. He has 4 years left because they have a new rule where he's transferring in from a junior college. So we've got him 4 years. I look for him to be a backup. But I don't know where. They really haven't said where he's played. I don't know whether he played safety, corner. I really don't know. We're just kind of waiting to see. Now here's the other one. They signed another defensive back. This could play into that safety position where the young kid was earlier. Darian Lewis. He's a transfer from Akron, originally from Akron, Ohio. He has 1 year left. He's a senior. Very experienced player, played a lot, and I think he may slide into one of those backup roles at defensive back. Who knows? He may start. I don't know. We'll just have to see. Like I said, I think with those younger kids in there, they're going to put somebody in those spots to help out. Now, in the offensive line today, we signed Carson Lee. He's a transfer from Mississippi State. He's originally from Greenwood Village, Colorado. He's a senior. He's versatile. He can play both guard positions and center, and I look for him to slide in there as a backup, possibly in one of those positions. He's a big guy. It's just I just don't know a lot about him yet because he just, like I said, he just signed right before the show started. So don't know. Now this one intrigues me here. We signed a linebacker today, John Lewis. He was originally at Mississippi State. He transferred to UNLV for his last year in January, and it apparently didn't work out. So he's a senior, and he's coming. He's 6'4", 240 pounds. That's huge compared to anybody we have at linebacker. I think he's going to find a spot in there somewhere, but I just don't know. I don't know how he's going to play. I don't know. He's one of those guys that wasn't even on the radar. I mean, that wasn't even somebody that anybody was even talking about. And he just kind of popped up and they signed him. Like, wow, where'd that come from? So, I mean, like I said, it's changing every day, and I don't know what to think. I mean, I think that guy's going to be a factor. A pretty good sized player. If he's got any footwork at all, I think he's going to get some playing time.
Mm-hmm.
But now this tells you right here, and that the guys I'm talking about now that coming up here are just players we've offered. That doesn't even include players like the linebacker today who wasn't even on anybody's radar. But we've still, I don't even know what our numbers are. Nobody's putting the numbers out there. I'm sure we're way over the 105. They're going to have to start making some cuts somewhere along the way to get back to that 105 mark. But we've offered another running back, 4 wide receivers, 2 offensive linemen, 1 defensive lineman, 3 linebackers, 3 defensive backs, 1 defensive end, and 1 tight end. So I mean, if we sign half of those, there's 5 or 6 players you're going to have to cut. So I don't. Like I said, it's just it's a puzzle here. I'm just trying to figure it out. It's But anyways,
Greg,
that's kind of the overview I have. I mean,
that was great. Greg, this we've never seen anything even close to this. I was thinking about this in the old days when the football recruiting pretty much mirrored the where the students came from. They come from West Virginia, Eastern Ohio, and Western Pennsylvania. And clearly, as you said in your intro, these folks are coming from everywhere. And it's just
we have more on the West Coast I've ever seen in my life.
Absolutely.
California and Washington, Texas, Colorado. We've never had players out of all those areas. 1 or 2, but not half your team. But it's we'll see how it all plays out. It's he said that was part of his plan, was to sign that many in the spring portal. So he's sticking to it, and I'm he's our coach. I'm going to stand by him.
Yeah.
We're going to see how it goes.
The other thing about this, Greg, and you and I have talked about this. Cignetti's success at Indiana last year has changed the formula. It used to be, you bring in a new coach, you've got 3 to 5 years. Now you've got 3 to 5 months. And so he can't afford to go 4-8 his first season. And he knows that, and he's acting like it.
Yeah, I agree. We were talking earlier, you and I today, the media they're not looking at our recruiting class or our portal class as being very good. I mean, they're picking us last in the conference as far as the portal recruitment. I understand Texas Tech, they've got money to burn out there, and they're getting a lot of talent out there. I would have to think we're better than last, but I don't know. I'm not a recruiting guru, I guess. I dabble in it, but I don't really know what other teams are doing. So I mean, I don't know. I'm hoping to think that we're not the last in the conference. I think they've done a lot of work here. My gut feeling is, barring whoever the quarterback is, and if White can do well, if the offensive line can gel enough to get some holes for him, I think that'll open up some passing, and I think they can have a decent balanced attack. On defense, I think we're going to see some improvement. I think they've concentrated on that, and I think they concentrated on their coaches on defense. I think they brought in some good assistants, and I think you're going to see a difference on the defense. On the offense, I think Rodriguez is running the show there, and I think he has coaches that know his system on the offense, and I think he's going to have his hand in that. But I think on the defense, he's going to keep an eye on it, but he's going to let that defensive coordinator run the show. And he brought in assistants. There was a couple guys on there, from a guy from Boise and so forth, that no one really knew anything about, but he knew him, and he brought him in. And I really think the coach on offense, this guy's on offense, but the guy they just brought in from Auburn that replaced Blaine Stewart, he's already made his mark on things. He's got a quarterback committed from Texas. He got these transfers in from Texas and Oklahoma. We got a backup. That's another one that's not. I don't even have on the depth. It's not in the depth chart. It was offensive lineman from Oklahoma. I mean, there's just so much out there. But he's made a mark. He's starting to bring players in from those areas. We'd always get 1 or 2, but that's his areas. He recruited Texas and Oklahoma. I think he's going to make a big difference in getting some decent talent out of there. He has the high school connections, I think, to really make it happen. So we'll see. But that's kind of the overview I have. I mean, hopefully it wasn't. That's a lot of information. Everybody's probably on
That's great.
overload here, but it's that's kind of where we're at. I mean, but again, I could do this, next Wednesday, and it would be different probably. So it's just hard to say what we're looking at.
That was great. And let me repeat something we said a couple of weeks ago too about the ranking. When we think of rankings, we ordinarily think of West Virginia's being compared with Texas and so on.
Yeah.
That's not the way the On3 rankings work. It doesn't work that way. So it's teams being compared ins and outs, and we lost a lot of great players.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of great players, Donaldson to Ohio State, et cetera.
Yeah.
So it's comparing the rating of the players coming in vis-a-vis
Versus
the ratings
what we
of the
had.
players, what we had and lost. And what's amazing is, and I can't remember, we were talking about it today, I think so far, just in the portal, there's been like 75 trades in terms of numbers of players out and numbers of players in. When you add the ins and the outs together, it's over 70. That's just stunning. We don't have a frame of reference for this.
Yeah.
I think something else too, Frank. When you look at where your score as far as your portal is concerned, a lot of times you look at the school that somebody came from, and people will have the impression that, well, if they came from Bowling Green, they're not very good. They're so. They might have been good at Bowling Green, but they won't be that good here. And I think a lot of that ranking is based on where people come from, not so much what they've accomplished or how good a player they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, let me tell you too. If you look at the NFL historically, Jerry Rice came out of a bad program. Jack Lambert came out of a bad program.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these big-time players came out of programs, but they were great players within that program. I think that's what you're alluding to there. I think that's a big there's a lot of good players that come out of those smaller schools. And, you just got to – I think especially on defense, I think we really signed some solid guys. And I think on the offensive line, some of these later pickups we've got, if they can pick up the zone blocking aspect of things, I think we're going to be okay. And we did have a loss. That must have been a mutual situation. The kid they signed from Princeton was a big kid who had played in a zone blocking system. People had just penciled him in as an automatic starter because of his experience. And he had narrowed it between us and Georgia Tech, and he chose WVU, and he withdrew last week. So he's going somewhere else now.
Mm-hmm.
But then you see who we brought in here, these guys from Power 5 schools. So, we'll just have to see. I mean, some of these kids are Power 4 or 4-star players coming out of Power 5 schools. They just didn't lose it overnight. I mean, they've still got some talent in there. So they've got some stuff to work with, I think.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep. All right, Mark, as always,
Mark.
great job, man. Appreciate it. And
thanks for having me, guys.
A lot of good information there. We'll get you back for sure when all this starts to simmer down a little bit and with things solidify. We'll have you back on and talk about the depth chart at that point.
Keenan's coming on next week. Keenan for Cummings. He can probably he should have a better handle on things. Hopefully next week with some of these new guys that may be able to help out some there. So we'll see how things go next week, and maybe he can give us a little more information.
All right.
Thank you, Mark.
Good.
The amount of time you put into that, perfect. Just wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Good job. All right. We got one final guest here before we sign off tonight. And interesting article we both Frank shared with me from Derek Hollingsworth concerning some of the draft situation. And we're going to bring Derek in. I think he's with us. And Darren, if you want to bring him on into the main room. There he is. Hello, Derek. Nice to see
Hey,
you. Nice.
how are you guys?
Good.
Doing fine.
Good.
Can you hear me?
Derek, yeah, a little bit too high on the audio. If you want to dial that down a bit,
Okay.
if you can. What's amazing is Derek is a Michigan grad, so I'm really surprised that he's wearing an IU cap. No, he's an IU grad.
Now, I'm an IU grad that lives in Michigan. There's a difference.
There you go. But you were a coach. You were an athletic director. You're a sports writer. You've done so many things, Derek. Why don't you say a few words about yourself first before we talk about that great article that's getting a lot of reads?
Well, coming from a teaching background, I think first of all, I'd say when you talk about yourself, you got to lead with gratitude. And Frank, I got to give you a lot of gratitude. You've given me a space to sports write on the side that gets printed. And, you know, in the world we live in, I think we need more writers. And that's why I was a teacher for a while. And, you know, life happens and you move on. But Frank, really a ton of gratitude for you for putting this thing out there. But yeah, my background is sports just finds me. I was born across the street from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And I think one of my earliest memories is selling Ham's beer for a quarter so that the guys could go through our fence. You know, and the funniest thing is I'm not but, I don't know, 7 or 8 years old, and we moved to 49th and Capitol in Indianapolis. And they're filming Hoosiers, the movie Hoosiers. And we got to watch everybody get all their 50s clothes on and walk over to Hinkle Fieldhouse at Butler. So I'm just drawn to sports. I went to IU. I was there when Bob Knight was let go. I'll table that opinion, which I was, well, I'll just say this, I'm a Bob Knight fan. But I was on the cover of the newspaper for that. And then that's right when I was finishing up, what am I going to do with my life? And it was into teaching and guiding young people. And so I've had a tremendous journey and all that. And that, you know, that's kind of long gone, but I still maintain those connections. So I was able to get this story just from friends and, you know, the multiple, you could probably see all behind me, you know, the multiple institutions I've been involved with that help young people. And so I always feel the truth's important to get out. And I was really inspired to write the story.
Yeah. Well, why don't you just give the audience an overview of the story, and then Greg pitch in because you read it. I know you have questions, but let's start with your giving the overview, Derek.
Sure. So I don't do a lot of social media. I'm 47 years old, and I only do Facebook, and I just keep it to friends. But these friends are a lot of colleagues, and a lot of them are in the sports world. So I got a share about a Facebook post from Carol Westmoreland, who is her, I don't know if it's her cousin or her brother-in-law, is Jason Strayhorn, who in the 90s was a really good Michigan State player that came out of North Central High School in Indianapolis. So anyway, I knew it was legit. And I read what he wrote, and I knew it was a hot button issue, and I just said, you know, I want to know more about that. I think the world needs to know more about that. And sure enough, I wrote kind of a draft to see, you know, let's get something on paper. So if I can get him on the phone, I'm ready to write the article. And I did, and I got him on the phone. And his story, he was not angry. He wasn't upset, but he had a story to tell. And I was amazed at the lack, you know, I sometimes roll my eyes at the lack of real journalism that goes on. That, you know, you touch on the hot button issues of stuff that'll click, and how nobody knew this story. The combine is in Indianapolis. Cardinal Riddle High School is, I don't know, it's like 30th Street, and if you consider Lucas Oil Stadium at 0, so it's 30 blocks away. And how do you not, all these guys in town, not know that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders were throwing the football around at Cardinal Riddle High School for 2 days? And I think that's a credit to the coach, and the story is really about the coach. Because I think I used the word in the article, nonplussed. He wasn't starstruck. He was just there to facilitate, the growth of these 2 young men. And he was pretty taken aback and wasn't going to say anything about how good of people they were consistently over the course of a few days. And I think that's important. Now, he touched on the fact that Sanders Jr. has another media company, and his real feeling was that the NFL doesn't like these guys telling their own story. And yeah, one of the things that, I've kind of extrapolated over all the stuff about Shedeur Sanders is that he may have gone out and joked around in a bunch of interviews. And he may have made a few missteps. But at the end of the day, the real story is he's a good kid. And he's not just a good kid, he's a really good football player. Now, those stories will pan out, right? But I needed to tell the story of this coach and what he saw.
Mm-hmm.
You hear, I've heard talk of collusion and everything else, racism, all these types of things being involved in his slide. And I don't know. I never thought much about those things while I was watching it. I just thought he's just not quite good enough,
Greg, that was my initial thought.
Yeah,
that was my initial thought.
Did you hear? Did you hear the word collusion come up or racial anything?
Okay, so that's an important point. So I definitely, after getting comfortable with Coach Johnson, I was not shy about asking about race. If you look at, I taught and coached at Northwest, and then I was in Inglewood High School. I was the only white guy around. So I don't have a problem talking to a African-American gentleman about race, and I put it straight to him, and he was not having it. And then, I think I come from a family of, my dad was an attorney, had his own practice. And so I think about the word collusion, and collusion is not conspiracy. Okay. Collusion is a bunch of people agreeing, or not agreeing. They're sharing a bunch of information that's kind of unethical. Right. And so, yeah, I definitely think there was collusion. Now, that being said, do I think it was nefarious or was they planned it? I don't know. There'd have to be a lot more to put into that. That'd be conspiracy, right? I don't think there's a conspiracy. But the drop all the way to the 5th, there's got to be some collusion. This is not journalistic, but I find it, the Browns, it's getting drafted by the Browns in the 5th. That's a message. That's got to be a message. And when I read about what these kids did on the practice field in front of coaches that really knew what they were doing, or coaches that have background, they're not full of BS, right? And to hear that, I started to get on board on that side. My initial reaction was, I don't watch a ton of Colorado football. They're all over the place, but I didn't think the product was really out there on the field as a former athletic director, but I didn't take that close of a look. But I trust the guys that I heard from. So yeah, I think this is, and what the coach was pointing out, and I may have missed this in the article a little bit. I think coach was really pointing out that the NFL is more upset, or if they were, I guess he was saying, that they didn't like the Sanders media. Okay, so that includes Deion Jr. and just them taking the control away from the NFL. NFL wants to protect the shield, and the coach was adamant about that.
Yeah.
Did he mention the father at all that teams did not I've heard that a lot. Teams didn't want to have to deal with Dion because
Yeah, Greg, he did, but the only way he did was like Dion wasn't anywhere around, and these kids are operating on their own, in their own group, and they're doing it on their own, and the Dion lets them. He's definitely in charge, but the coach was like, but it wasn't, no Deion Sanders involved. This is Deion Sanders Jr., who is a exceptional media guy. Like, I don't think it's out there on traditional media what he's doing. You'd have to be a follower of that, that group and how they're doing things. But I think they're starting to kind of beat the NFL out as far as gathering the youth's attention. Guys like you and me, I mean, shoot, I had to set this up today. I don't do this stuff, but these kids do, and they're very good at it. And I think the NFL is kind of like, I would think that's a part of it. They want to rein in control, and so there's the other aspect of that is, and Coach and I talked about this later after the article. I don't know, maybe Dion and them are in on it, because the viewership for the third, fourth, fifth round was the highest the NFL's ever had. So let's drag this along. And my opinion of Dion is that he is a very media savvy person, and obviously his son is too. And I could definitely see that being the case. That, hey, let's test this out. But at the end of the day, it's ingenuous, right? Yeah. That's the point for me. It's a not genuine reflection of the talent of the kid. And to go 5 rounds, you have to have every team pass on him a couple times, which, based upon the story I heard from that field on Cardinal Ritter High School, no. the kid should have gone pretty high. I mean, he can do it.
Yeah.
Well, Frank, before you go, I just want to say this. I've been a Browns fan for 50 years, and
I'm sorry.
That's what I always get. Nobody ever's like, "Ooh, I hate the Browns." I always like, "Sorry, guy." But it sounded like you had a little backhanded slap there that it got to the Browns, so maybe that was planned, and that's a punishment.
I mean, Jimmy Haslam hasn't done a great job with that team, Greg. You got 4 quarterbacks. But I if you root for your team, I root for you rooting for your team, and I hope the Browns do well, and I hope it works out.
Well, I want to thank Darren for putting the cover of the article up there. You can read it; it's free. From Derek, the sports column, the title's there. And the thing that struck me when I read it the first time was nobody knew this was going to happen. The coach didn't, and so all of a sudden you've got the person who ends up being the number one, the person who was taken number 1 in the draft, Cam Ward, and you've got Shedeur Sanders, both there on your field, and he had his athletic director and himself, and they watched these two go at it with their people over 2 days. And,
right. Yeah.
And I think it's fair to say, without giving away the article, they would be hard pressed to say at the end of the day one was significantly better or even marginally better than the other.
That's absolutely correct, Frank.
And so what it says, I think, to us is there's politics in everything. And
yes.
What I find completely crazy about this is, don't tell me that Shedeur Sanders is not like Lamar Jackson. And so you can't
that's
say,
a very good comparison.
You can't say, oh, we can only draft a drop back passer.
Mm-hmm.
And the Browns had taken the quarterback from Oregon, and Dylan's a great quarterback too. So it's, but there's politics and everything, and what you said is extremely important. You don't get to where the NFL is without basically saying it is all about power, and the rules of the game are the rules that we make. And if you don't conform to those rules,
That's right.
if you don't line up, hey, we're seeing that in Washington now. Look what happens.
Well, it's
Another
very
thing,
much, I think, with Sanders, the whole machine of all of the Sanders crew is that they got really, really far with it and, did well with Travis Hunter. But at some point, I think it's very obvious the NFL says, no, we control this narrative, not you.
and I think too, when you look at you look at some of these quarterbacks that were drafted ahead of him. I mean, the guy from Alabama, and I'm not saying any of them are bad, but I mean, come on.
You got the kid from Oregon on the Browns too.
Right, right. And if you watch, if you watch the games at all, and you see him play, there's not a big comparison in my mind to see him and I can't think of it's Milrose from Alabama.
Yeah,
Um,
Melrose, right.
yeah, Shador Sanders so much better. It looked to me like now I'm no expert, but so you look at those type of things and all those quarterbacks that went ahead of him, and you just think, man, something's going on here? It's
Yeah.
just not
And,
right.
and in my background, I've been on the field a lot, and you can see the pop and snapping the ball and the little things. And when I hear that from coaches that I trust, I mean, they're friends of friends. But I looked up their background. That is a legit analysis, and I'm going, something stinks here, a little bit at least, or something to look into.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I there's definitely something going on, and a great article, by the way.
Thank you
People
very
need
much.
Yeah, people need to read that, check it out. Makes a lot of sense. A lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah, Derek, we want to thank you for
Yeah,
coming on in short order. And it was the story of the draft.
yeah.
And that's why those ratings were so terrific as the
Mhm.
draft moved on. And now it comes down
Business,
to
business.
the way athletics always comes down to. There, it's going to be the winner's going to be who emerges from the field.
Yeah,
And
that's the beauty of football, right? If the guy can go out there and get on the field, then we'll have our answer, I think, a little bit. Um, yeah. If before you guys let me go, if I could just really quick, I've moved to a little town in Ludington, Michigan. And behind me, you might be able to see the Q Smokehouse in Ludington, Michigan. Great barbecue if you guys come up here. And he's just a friend of mine. He didn't give me any money. I just said I'm gonna give me a couple T-shirts. I'm gonna put the Q Smokehouse.
very good.
Right,
That's
hey,
great.
Frank,
Shameless plug. Shameless plug.
right out
No,
of
that's
Dion's
good.
playbook. Wasn't it?
That's right. Right out of the Dion playbook.
That's great.
Derek, appreciate
Derek,
it
thank
so
you
much.
so very much.
Great
We really
time.
appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much. It's been an honor, and I
All right,
appreciate you promoting the article.
absolutely.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. We'll keep track of you and have you back someday. Good job.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Bye, guys.
Bye bye. Frank, reading that article, it really does make you think. And I'm not a big conspiracy guy or anything like that, but uh, looking at what all transpired there, he's spot on. Something's up. I don't care what they say.
It surely does. And the other thing you'll read in the article that Derek does a great job with is through the coach's words, what great people
Yeah,
both Ward and Sanders were, and they acted. They weren't arrogant. They weren't look at me, look at what I've accomplished. They were very appreciative, and they were just the kind of sons, next door neighbor,
yep,
brother that you'd want to have, and that's an important part of the story because there's so much pounding of the chest, especially these
yeah,
days, and they didn't act
yeah,
like that at all. Great role model for the high school students there.
yep. And another, which you don't think much about it at the time, but you look back on it now. The story that broke, 3 or 4 days before the draft about how obnoxious he acted, and how he blew people off on the interviews and showed up in this car or that car and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Makes you wonder, did that really happen? you know, because those type of stories break every year right before the draft. Somebody puts out a story, and it always drives me crazy when it's an anonymous source, and which this was, and I'm just like, now you look back on it, you think maybe it was planned out and schemed out, it's a head scratcher, and but yeah, when you don't pay much attention to it at the time, but then after it's all said and done, and you see how things transpired, and you hear different stories, and you read these things, it makes you think. It really does make you wonder what world's going on.
Hmm. Well, football is king. That wasn't the way when we were growing up. Baseball was king, and it
Yeah.
was the World Series. But when you think about it, uh, when I turned on the television to see all those people in Green Bay, tens of thousands of people standing there and cheering. I mean, that kind of interest in a draft, it just shows you how big in this country football has become. And it's not football writ large uh, in terms of the money and power. It's the NFL.
NFL, yeah.
Yeah, there, so anything is possible. But that's why Derek's article is good, because it makes you sit back, and it's not a commentary, by the way. What Derek's doing in the article is basically sharing a story that was told to him by the principals, particularly Coach Johnson, the high school coach. And so there's so much sports commentary with people like Stephen A. Smith. This is not commentary; it's journalism, in a strictest sense of reporting a story, and that's important, because then after you read it, you can ruminate and come to your own conclusion. May not be the right conclusion, but you have the choice, rather than being told by a reporter or a writer what you should think. So I think that's important. So
I think it is too, and that's another thing that's changed over the years, which we need to get back to, is that people aren't really interested much in the thinking part of it. They want somebody to tell them what to think, and again, journalism is we need more of this, more of it, and we don't have nearly enough of it. So great job by Derek. That was a lot of fun.
Great.
Frank, we're out of time. We got started a little bit
are.
late tonight, so we ran over a little bit as well. But we got it in. We got it done. Looking to to next week, we've got Keenan Cummings going to come back and join us. And as Mark said, Keenan will have probably a more insight into what's going on in the football program with all the transfers and that sort of thing. So we look forward to having Keenan in.
Yeah, he'll do. If you could put up the graphic, Darren, before we run. We got a little video at the end, but to have Keenan. So for those of you who may recognize him by his facial features, he's been on before. And I might mention that when we had Keenan on, I think about 2 or 3 months ago, that was our largest viewed show on the New River Network. And so he has a lot of followers. He does great work. He's the beat writer for Rivals.com, WVUSports.com. And so he'll, but, Mark did a great job. Talk about, Keenan will be the cleanup hitter, to use baseball language. And that's he'll be the cleanup hitter, but Mark was the leadoff hitter, which is a cue for you to tell us what the score is.
The score right now is 6-6, and
it's time.
In the 7th inning. Yep, West Virginia just threatened that 2-1 with nobody out, and hit into a double play, and then grounded out the end of the inning. So tie ball game right now, 6-6. So very good. I think Darren mentioned that he may not have that.
Maybe I forgot to send it to him.
Well, that
so he can't. He can't put it up. Sorry, Darren, to put you in a bad situation. Well,
I'll make a suggestion, Frank. Just go ahead and send it, and then he can, when he puts the show out in the archives, he can add it in.
Oh, great, super, great.
Well, I'm speaking for Darren. I'm assuming he can do that.
Yeah. Well, it's no big deal in the sense that West Virginia fans know Keenan Cummings and his work widely followed. We're just blessed to have them next week, and that's the important thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Another great show tonight. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We appreciate Derek and Mark for joining us and enlightening us as we often get each week. We thank everyone who watched, and we look forward to coming to you again next Wednesday night. We'll have Keenan Cummings on, talk more Mountaineer football. So we appreciate you joining us on New River Network and the Voice of College Football, the Mountaineer Locker Room then and now. For Frank Fear, I'm Greg Christ. Have a great night, everybody. Good night.
Hi, everyone. Frank Fear here from Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now, and we're pleased to be part of the Voice of College Football National Network. Mark Rogers and staff have done a great job with the network, and it's constantly adapting and expanding to bring content to you. Many of you are already following us on X and Facebook and Instagram, and if you're not, here are the URLs, the links to go to and take advantage of all the great content that's there for you. Even if you do that, you may not know some of the new doings at the Voice of College Football Network. One is a new podcast options that already thousands of people are taking advantage of. You can get it on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast networks, and we encourage you to do that. Perhaps the biggest drum roll is the new Voice of College Football website with plenty of content, everything that you want to enjoy and can enjoy about college football. And remember, one thing that makes the Voice of College Football Network different is that we're 24/7, 12 months a year. It never ends. It's college football in the winter, the spring, the summer, and of course, during the fall. We also want to announce, and Mark Rogers again and staff have done a great job with this, a relationship with Amazon.com. And here's Mark to tell you more about it.
You can make a difference here at the Voice of College Football. Use the Amazon link. Financially contribute to the Voice of College Football without spending a penny. Same shopping experience. It's easy. Go to any video on any channel. Go to the description section and grab the link right next to the capital letters that say Amazon. Use that link, and Amazon will instantaneously convert to your account, settings, history, everything intact, just like whatever link you use right now. No difference. Pay no attention to the product that you see right there. Just go search what you want. Don't forget the Amazon link. Thank you for your support. Sincerely, the Voice of College Football.
Well, that's it for now. Let me thank you for your loyalty. Voice of College Football Network. This is Frank Fear for Mountaineer Locker Room Then and Now. Hope to see you on our channel and other channels, VOCF. Take care, everybody.